Welcome back to the Other Side Lifestyle Podcast with Jim and Aram. Today, get ready for the boom boom. Cody McBroom as our guest. There's no reason to build it up because you saw the name in the title. This man is not wanted by Texas. He's not wanted by Idaho, but he is wanted by Washington. I told him if he really loved his family, he would move to downtown Portland. Possible future speaker of the Real Coaches Summit. We will see. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Cody McBroom, the owner of Tailored Coaching Method.
Thank you, man. What an intro.
It's fucking awesome.
It's always fun hearing Boom Boom, dude.
I know, it's been a while.
I went by Boom Boom for so long, and it's always cool when I do hear it because it means like it's somebody I've known for a long time. Because
there's a legacy. Rare. It's a legacy.
Yeah. My only human interaction with Cody was at a urinal, and shockingly, he was not trying to look at my penis. Most men at urinals do. And he said to me, stop using your logo as your IG profile and put your picture up. So I did. So you're welcome.
And
thank you, Cody. And you're welcome to all the people. You can thank him for being able to see my face more.
5,000 followers later, it's all because of Cody.
It took
That's what it was.
years to go from 1,700 to over 5,000. It's because my picture went out. If Aram maybe tagged me more and stuff, people would know about me. Just kidding.
I have enough people to tag every day. So that's your Cody story. I have a better Cody story.
Probably.
This is actually a teachable moment if coaches are listening. So
yes,
we met Cody together when Jim and I went to the first. After our NCI level 1 in October of 2019, I think NCI's coaching con was in November of that year in Scottsdale.
Like the next year, yeah.
And I just got in the space. It was my first in-person coaching event ever. I had no idea what to expect. I don't think Jim did either.
Yeah.
And we walk into this room with all these people who, at that point, were all kind of like internet celebrities to us. And they always say, don't meet your heroes in person because they're going to disappoint you. And people are walking around and I'm trying to figure out whose fucking ass do I have to kiss and whose dick do I have to suck today to start to move up into this industry. And
so I let him suck mine first just to warm up. Continue.
I see Cody walking around with, I think at the time you had a cameraman or a person shooting content for you. I've had a very, very odd rule that I've now recently broken where I don't associate with people who shoot content of themselves, and I don't associate with people with over 100,000 followers. So right then and there, I had a bias that I just immediately started, and I was like, I don't care how helpful his content is, I don't care how nice of a guy he is, and I just immediately put this wall up and I said, fuck this guy. And then I started actually kind of quietly following the shit that he was doing on the sidelines, and I started seeing the amount of people he was helping, and I started realizing that you're an old, miserable, grumpy fuck. And there's absolutely zero reason for you to not like somebody who you've never even had a social interaction with. And just because now I understand the business, I understand the value of being able to shoot content in those situations because it does create some pretty cool things. I didn't know that at the time because I was an old, miserable, grumpy fuck. So I say all that to say that, folks, if you're a coach listening to this, don't discount people and don't start to put up walls before you've actually gotten a chance to know them. Cody actually ended up following me about a month and a half ago. He had congratulated me on my event. I know that he's doing a lot of great things in this industry. We started following each other. I invited him on this podcast. And this is how the world turns in our industry. So if you ever close your doors to somebody, you're doing yourself in this industry a disservice. So that's my little public service message to start.
Man, I love that. That's, I mean, I agree. And I can think of situations where I've judged a book by its cover or whatever it may be and grown to be pretty close to individuals in the industry and grown because of it. I also would say I had no idea that you felt that way about me.
I kept
that everybody.
I kept that deep down and I would cry about it in my apartment by myself.
I'm just glad you came around. And honestly, the funny thing is that because I remember your event last year and then my coach, I had a couple coaches go last year and I know I had one coach go this year. And I have talked about you through them and said, yeah, I know who he is and I follow him and his shit's great and stuff. And then a month and a half ago, I realized I didn't follow you. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? It's I followed you.
He's like, the damn algorithm. It doesn't show around stuff.
You know, and to be fair too, and I think this is a helpful tip as well. Like, I actually know when I've had a really good business day when I'm like, oh shit, I haven't posted on my story or anything today because I'm actually doing business stuff. I'm not just fucking around on Instagram. And I am one of those guys that posts and ghosts. Like, I get on, I post, I comment back to the people who are engaging with me, I DM people back, and then I get off of it because I got shit to do and I got work. And you know, it's like, that's a business tool to me specifically. And usually what ends up happening if I'm talking to somebody on there who I actually like genuinely like and want to be in their circle and stuff, I usually just, sounds so weird. I like a pickup, but I'm like, yo, give me your number. Like, and I text them.
I'm the same way.
Here, let me check my DMs
outside of the app.
No, I didn't get anything from you yet. Okay.
Not yet, Jim.
That's fine. That's fine.
Well, it's funny. It's kind of like, it's like
feelings are temporary.
It's like with Jay
your logo, and I couldn't find your logo, so I didn't recognize the face.
What a bastard!
It's like what Jay Ferrugia was saying at Silverback. He's like, yeah, I mean, if you meet somebody, just get your number from them.
Dude, I was so tempted to go up to him as soon as he sat down. Hey, can I get your number? I was so tempted to do it, and I didn't. I just had a regular conversation with him a little bit later. But yeah,
well, Cody, it's actually an interesting point, and I think there's a lot of this stuff going on in our industry where like people will meet folks that have like credibility or status at events or at functions, whatever. And then instead of like connecting with them to try to like pick their brain and understand how they got to this point of status or credibility, they just like want to snap the picture and they want to just talk all about it.
Brutal.
Which, listen, Andrew Coates had made a good point. He's like, don't ever invalidate somebody's excitement of you just because they do think of you as a celebrity. And it is important for them to meet you. And I get that. But I think there's also some people who just clout chase and try to associate themselves with certain people and certain brands to bring their own status up without really earning it. Is that something that you find now that you've been in this industry for as long as you have been and servicing as many people as you have and being connected with some of the best people? Is that something that you encounter?
It is. I think that the people who are actually making moves and moving the needle and building something not just successful, but purposeful, meaningful, you know, like a really good brand, they don't do that. Typically, they want to know more about the person and learn about how they came up, how they started, how they build their business, what they find, like what's their philosophy on training, on nutrition, on business, on life. I want to learn about them so I can grow. I've found myself oftentimes kicking myself for not taking a picture with certain people because I got to connect and do stuff. And then I get home and I'm like, oh shit, I should have taken a picture and had something to post and say about it. But I'm wrapped up in learning about them and I grow because of that. And you know, there's a lot of times where I have met people who are exactly as they are on social media, for better or for worse. And there's also times where they're completely different, you know, but I can't tell you how many times I've met influencers who I end up helping because they don't know shit about business. And it shocks me. And I genuinely want to help them. Some of them are really good people. But it's just, it's one of those things, man. I think that you just got to be humble. And if somebody's noticing you, it's actually this is crazy, dude. This weekend, there's a grocery store called Hagen's out here. Me and my wife and my daughter were there, and this lady walked up to me. It was actually really funny. She goes, "Excuse me, are you the fitness Instagram guy?" And I was like, "I'm
one of them,
fitness Instagram." I don't know. And that doesn't happen very often, let alone at a grocery store or something. But it has happened a few times. And I sit there and I talk and I bullshit with them. And like, that is the most humbling, honorable thing ever. You know, like, so if you're being a dick because somebody wants to like learn about you or take a picture, like, you don't deserve to be in that position, first of all. Second of all, ask them why they felt called to say something. Like, I don't know. I look at our brand as everybody on my team is very, and I say this in a good way, just very average. And our goal is to be above average and chase above average everything. And we teach average people, right? The Gen Pop heroes, like, let's call it. And so when somebody comes up to me, I have to talk to them and get to know them and be excited about why they're even talking to me in the first place. Otherwise, why would they continue to follow me and support my brand and help me build the mission and the vision and the story that I'm trying to create? They wouldn't.
Yeah,
you know what I
mean? And anybody who's in this for the right reasons is going to enjoy those moments. Like, you enjoy human interaction.
Right.
You enjoy having those conversations. It's a normal, natural thing. You know, when I scoffed earlier, it's not that for the person who wants the picture to be taken with them. It's the Jim Carrey talks about it. You know, people want to get their picture with you because it gives them a feeling of importance to be around a celebrity, like this false feeling of importance. And he's like, and sometimes I let him take a picture with me, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I want to share my energy. Sometimes I don't. I mean, it's a different situation a little bit with what we're talking about, but it's more that, like, you can see that it's sometimes these conversations like, oh, I want to go get it. I want to. For you, when people are coming to you, can you tell the difference where there's this genuine, like they really do, hey, what's up, versus, oh, can I?
Yeah. Well, it's two different scenarios too. You know, like there's been a few times where I'm at random places or I was at a Luke Combs concert. My wife
Why?
cross country.
Why?
Honestly,
Well, that's interesting. He immediately explained it and blamed her. That's interesting.
Funny story about this. Point is I actually met somebody who was a podcast listener. They came up to me and I had 2 beers in my hand. And I turned around and they're like,
"Fuck,
you're Cody." And I'm like, "What's up?" And we start talking. But
You're like, balanced lifestyle.
we went to this concert. I was good friends with Luke Combs' trainer. Believe it or not, he has one. And
nice.
He basically got us like floor seats in that, but I didn't tell anybody. So we were up in the nosebleeds, and then he came and got us, and we got to go down.
That's sick.
He was like, "You want to go backstage and grab a drink? I know you don't like listen to this." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I go there, we're having a drink with him and some dude with a mullet. I go take a piss with this guy, come back. I'm like, later, man, I walk out. My wife's freaking out because I was just hanging out with Morgan Wallen, had no idea who he was. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I was just grabbing a drink with some dude and Kevin." And she's like, "Some dude?" And I was like, "Yeah." He showed me where the urinal was. We took a piss.
I wouldn't know who he is either.
She's like, "That's Morgan Wallen." I was like, "Who's that?"
The reality is he probably appreciated that. You know what I mean? Like I used to, I'm outside Philadelphia. Corey Simon was a Pro Bowler for the Eagles. Just a legend of a guy in the early 2000s. I used to go to church with him and hung out at his house.
Yeah.
You know, I was the only one who basically had no idea who he was and didn't talk football to him. I'm in the kitchen learning how his wife makes wings. And I'm like, I think he talked to me a little bit more than some of these other guys who were just talking about football to him.
Well, they love that, man. Like you know, there's 2 things I think are really, really cool here that I want to say. Like the first one is I'm thankful for my wife because she humbles me. Because anytime I'm like even that person who came up to me, like she doesn't literally say, "You're just in the fitness industry, like calm down." But I get that vibe a little bit because we all get like all hyped up about somebody, and somebody who's not in the industry will be like, "Who the fuck is that?" Like, you know, we're in our own bubble. So just remember that, you know. And then the other side of it is people like that appreciate that so much, man, because I've worked with countless WWE wrestlers now who have these crazy, I've had like death threat messages because I'm training the wrong WWE star, like crazy, dude. Oh yeah. Like people get really, really into
how's it worded? How's it worded? We need details.
Yeah. Like what?
I would have to like dig them up now because my message request is just full of spam, weird shit.
Yeah. So Instagram message request death threat.
Yeah, literally. Like
because you're training the wrong guy.
How could you be training Bailey and blah 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 and this? And it's a storyline, you know that, right? Like, calm down. But they're like ultra famous, right? And so I don't I just treat them like somebody else. I give them the same accountability. I call them out on their shit like it's normal. I actually worked with somebody who was, and I won't say the names because it's somebody I probably shouldn't say the name.
Yeah, who are they?
I didn't realize they were a star and they were in a movie and all this stuff. But it was basically, or I'm sorry, there was a movie made about this person. He wasn't in the movie. He did. Long story short, when I found out who it was through my assistant who was doing billing, I basically started kind of geeking out and was like, wanted to ask questions. He fired me shortly after, and this is years and years and years ago. So you learn your lesson. Like they want to be normal. You know what I mean? So normalize the situation, and even when you're getting on stage, like that's the last time I spoke in front of a big crowd. First thing I said is I'm an average dude. Like, and I just want to help you guys do really cool things. I'm going to show you how to actually do it because there's a lot of bullshit in the industry. And when you normalize yourself, it helps as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what has changed since having a kid, just in your life personally, in terms of goals or what you're pursuing. Has anything changed? Has your perspective on things changed? Has the way that you would approach clients changed? Any of that with having a kid, getting married and all that?
Yeah.
And tell everybody, how old is you have a daughter?
Yeah, she just turned 6.
Oh God, it's old.
Ago,
it's awful.
7th, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
She's at that age where she's got quite the attitude though.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it's cute half the times, and then the other half it's not. But Yeah, no, she's amazing, and it's obviously created a different kind of drive in me. But I think the thing that, looking at the different aspects of what I do, there's a sense of empathy and relatability that with clients that changes.
Yeah.
When you're in those shoes, you understand a little bit more. Even some of the things that I don't have to deal with, because my wife is a stay-at-home mom, but I can witness things that I didn't understand fully before, and now I can say, hey, I'll never actually understand, but I get it because I see it. You know what I mean? So there's an empathetic side of it, and it also gives you permission to call people out, because there's plenty of times where clients, and I actually just recorded a podcast about this yesterday, where I was saying different things that are wrong in the coaching industry, and one of them is I think coaches are just too soft across the board. And one of the reasons they're too soft is they're afraid to call clients out. They're afraid to give them the real accountability that they actually pay you for, right? And being aggressive enough in a diet or a training program or anything to just get the damn result. That's what they paid you for. So having a kid, watching what my wife went through pregnancy, raising her with my wife, and watching my wife do the majority of it when I'm gone, and so on and so forth, it just gave me a different perspective. And I think clients also have a different level of trust with me that allows me to call them out, And then on the business side, it gives me a different outlook on what success is, what wealth is, thinking about like legacy and stuff like that. And ultimately, there's like the whole adage of like money won't buy happiness. Nobody understands that until you make a decent amount of money. Like, you're going to chase money, and then once you get some of it, you realize, oh, okay, it isn't that. But I think for a long time, that was a driver of mine due to different influences, even like trying to impress my father, because I thought that's what would do it, to make him proud, kind of thing,
The never-ending quest.
That's a that's a rabbit hole that we can go down way too far.
Well, you know what? Like, it ends up doing this cycle of, well, once I get here, then I'll be good. Then I'll make it, right? And then it's like, well, that's not enough. The next part, and the next part. And then whether it's a dollar sign or it's a status or it's a house or a car, whatever it is, you kind of just keep upping the ante until you realize that it's the pursuit to more things. It's not more things necessarily.
It's interesting because that's the same kind of thing. That's totally analogous with people who are chasing a number on the scale, or they're chasing a certain physique. Once I get here, if you are chasing that external thing, it's never going to be enough.
Yeah. I would say that, in general, whatever you're talking about here, like topic wise or what you're trying to accomplish, success isn't defined by any marker. It's defined by fulfillment. So we have this saying, and we put it on somewhere on this sweatshirt, and I give it's on all the shirts that I give my team. It says,
do you need our addresses, or
I'll send you guys one?
We'll put our address in the show notes.
It says, always fulfilled, never satisfied. Right. Satisfaction is an ending point. Fulfillment is a process, right? That's why people always say, like, I'm chasing happiness. No, you're not, because happiness is defined by somebody else that you saw. You're like, that's happiness because they're smiling on Instagram. I'm going to get that thing. No, you're chasing being happier, which is a pursuit based on where you're currently at. It's a further state from where you're currently at. So the process, fulfillment, happier, not happiness, like, to me, that's what it's really come down to. And I didn't realize it much until, I don't know if it was because I had a kid or just like with years of doing this. And then after a while, you get things, you do things, you realize, like, I don't care what certain people think about me in the industry. I don't care about what the dollar sign says. I don't share that information with anybody anyway, And
how much do you make?
Bad month, just on a bad month.
What is that? I plead
Move
the
on.
fifth. Is that what is that thing? But to that point, my daughter doesn't know either. And even if I told her, she would know. I have no idea.
Yeah,
every day she's like, can you just not go to work today? And I'm like, no,
Man, it's the worst.
Why? Like, okay, I got to explain again why the only reason you're watching that iPad right now is because money. And then, we do this. And it's like,
at least you're not doing it while you're drinking and yelling at her and throwing beer on her either. So that's, at least you're doing it the right way. Because a lot of people in your state do that.
There's different ways to show love, Aram. All right.
Well, it's those two statements and regarding my state it's very funny, actually, what you just said.
I mean, I'm going to stereotype. That's what I do. I'm still a miserable, grumpy old fuck. That's what I'm going to be. I think it's a very interesting conversation. It's been coming up more and more. And I've started to really realize that I'm not a fat loss coach. Like, I don't give a fuck if you lose weight. I really don't, because you're probably going to put some of it back on at some point anyway. But if the mark that I can leave on your life is a positive one from an internal perspective, if I can lend some comfort and confidence into the process, and now you can step on a scale with no emotional attachment, you can walk into the gym with some confidence, you can go on vacation and not worry about like what's going to happen, or if you're going to gain weight, or what are people going to think of me at my high school reunion. Like, that's the shit that I care about, because that's the stuff that'll last. But this bikini body, like, I mean, you're fucking shredded quarter of the year, and then the rest of the year probably chilling. Like, I've been 7% body fat. I wasn't any happier. There was nothing in my life that changed for the, if anything, it was like I was more anxious. I was more overwhelmed. I had less pleasure in my life. I was fucking constantly worried about these abs and what people thought of my abs. It's like, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. Now at 23%, you're a lot happier.
Exactly. And, you know, but it's true. Like, you get to a certain point where, like, I think monetarily, I would like to be a little bit more comfortable just to be able to have an easier life, because I fucking hate having to worry about paying for shit. But from if you understand the basics of nutrition, and you understand that you should be lifting weights and doing the steps and drinking the water and going to bed, like, nobody doesn't know that stuff. And I think, like, when you coach your clients, and this is where I'm getting to with a question.
Yeah, I'm curious, because I have a question, and you're touching on it. So I'm very curious where you're going, and I want to piggyback off of it based on what happens here.
Like, all three of us hand out practical free advice daily. And anybody that follows us is probably following Brad, and probably following Sam Miller, and probably following all these other people who are doing the same exact shit at a different level. So if people know what all these basics are, Cody, where's the disconnect between I know the basics, I know what I should be doing, but I haven't been able to string it together, and I can't figure this shit out for some reason?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. And like, and this is coming from somebody who I'm not like a physique athlete, but I compete, like, and I plan on competing again, like, for the sport of it. But it ultimately comes down to, in my opinion, I call it the self-formation, and there's all these different self-blank, right? So most people need self-discipline is a really big one. Self-control. They often need to focus on willpower, self-grit. Eventually, they build their self-belief, which eliminates their self-doubt, because the more times you follow through and actually do what the fuck you said you were going to do, you eliminate the self-doubt, right? Self-doubt only increases if you say, oh yeah, even the small stuff, I'll take out the trash, and then you don't do it. Like, I take this stuff so seriously that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it no matter what.
Yeah, so confidence is built through action.
100%.
That's so weird.
It's so odd.
Following through with your promises.
Well, and you know what? Like, that leads to the transformation thereafter, which ultimately leads to self-respect. But the self-respect doesn't happen because of what they see in the mirror. It happens from the shit that they did to get there, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what really separates great coaches and people who stay with coaching companies a long time, and this is even some of the stuff that we focus on tremendously with my team, is we're always talking about the psychology of this stuff. Because if we can get people to understand, like, hey, we're doing this diet, this fat loss plan, you're having this transformation, here's all the traits you're developing. Like, let's look at these things and then connect the dots of where else they go. I'm a better dad because of fitness, because I'm more patient. I can give her more grace. I can actually think and have introspection, so I can teach her lessons when shit happen, right? I can take ownership. Like, all the things that I need to be a father happen because I'm in the gym, and I've transformed my body, and I've done the hard work. I've built a business. So if we can teach people to connect the dots, and we give them the lessons they're getting inside of it, then they end up actually applying it to other areas of their life. And fitness isn't just fitness anymore. It's personal development, right? Yeah. And that's really what leads to, like, overall success for people.
So where's the line? I think it's a perfect segue. We haven't heard Aram say that in a while. Segue. Where's the line, going back to your statement of too many soft coaches? We're talking about the psychology thing. We're talking about what Aram just said of, like, getting people to this place where they can just be happy. They can not worry about the last few pounds. But at the same time, you're saying people are hiring you for a result, whether it's for a cut, we'll say. Somebody wants to lose fat. Where's that line? How do you instill that with your coaches? What conversations are being had where you're still being tough, but you're being graceful and understanding the situation that they're in?
I think it boils down to making a decision with logic and then delivering it with some emotional intelligence. It's really all it is. And what I mean by that is, if I have a client check in with me and they fell off the diet this week because
They sound awful already.
They couldn't they couldn't make it to the gym, and their dog was they got a new puppy and it was pissed everywhere, and there's all these like things, right? And then you give them grace. You're like, okay, well, everybody has a bad week. I get it. Okay, let's just get back to it. And then next week, it's like, oh, my kids, they have, there's like PTA meetings and blah, blah. There's a certain point where there's an old, it's in Peru. I think it's some kind of old Peru proverb or whatever.
Ayahuasca?
Not that one. It's an old saying, and it says, beyond these mountains are more mountains. Right. And so having that conversation with clients like, hey, next week it's going to be something different. So let's just cut the shit and let's get to business. And I'm going to tell you this because I love you and I want you to get the result. At the end of the day, and this is why I look at numbers and logic and data and trends before I read a client's update. Like, let me look at the numbers. Let me make a decision of what we need to do. And then I'm going to read this and I'm going to deliver this information based on that conversation they're having with me and what they're telling me, and if you do that, like at the end of the day, people pay you and hire you because they're like, hey, I want you to hold me accountable. I want you to get me to a result. So if I sat there and I really thought about it, do they want me to hold their hand and pat them on the butt and say, it's okay, you tried? No, they want you to tell them like, hey, like, I know you tried, but you failed. So let's figure out why you failed. And then let's not fail tomorrow and next week.
Yeah.
And
that would be the difference to you, would be the soft coach is just always saying it's okay and not having the conversation of how are we going to.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when you first start coaching, I get it. It is, if you don't have a mentor, somebody who like you work for, like that can tell you and give you permission, like, hey, you can toughen it up a bit. Yeah. It can be difficult. It's an awkward conversation. I remember plenty of times where I'd send an email to a lady or a Loom video to a lady, and I'd be like, I don't know if they're going to like that. And they're like, fuck yeah, thank you, Cody. That's exactly what I needed. Yeah. I need somebody to kick me in the ass, tell me what to do. I'm like, whoa, well, okay, let's go.
Yeah, like this language can be so misinterpreted. Like when you hear somebody say, we need coaches to be tougher. And then it can potentially, that phrase can make then a coach potentially feel like I have to stop being so emotional and empathizing with them at all. And it's like, listen, this is what you said you were going to do. You need to hit your macros this week. Like that. Now I'm being the tough coach that I heard these people talk about. So I think it's important what you just said, to clarify and explain the difference between maybe a tough coach and a soft coach for any coaches that are listening, that we still want to understand. We still want to use the psychology. We still want to empathize. We still want to listen to what they're dealing with and relate to them on that level, troubleshoot with them. Like you said, hey, where did you fall short? Why? What things can you do next time? And walk them through that problem solving or troubleshooting process.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like that's what emotional intelligence is, right? And even like, I remember like reading the love languages taught me so much about how to communicate with clients, because now I'm going to say this tough love, or like I'm not going David Goggins on people, but I'm going to give them this tough love.
That's what I'm talking. Yeah. That's the be a tougher coach. I think people are going, Goggins. Yeah.
And here's the thing is like, I'm going to say it in a way that I know they're going to interpret properly, and they're going to receive it how I know they need to. I'm going to say it that way. And ultimately, again, it goes back to like, this is what they hired for. And I also believe part of coaches being too soft, I talk about this all the time, and sometimes people get pissed at it. And there's just too many out of shape, pathetic coaches. Like if you're in this industry, like you don't need to be shredded, but you got to be in shape. You got to be strong. You have to have done it before. Like, who are you as a role model? Like if I'm going to sit here and give tough love, but they're like, well, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
It's like you're FaceTiming with them and you have Doritos crust on your chin.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or
on your second chin.
I want to say Spencer Nadolski posted a meme about this, I think it was, but it's like the 21-year-old trainer who isn't married, has no kids, telling his client who's a mom of 3 that everybody has the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, I saw
it's
that.
Like, I can speak on this a little bit better now because I can go, hey, like I get it. I have a daughter, I have a wife, I have a full team, I have a full client roster. I get it. Like I'm also trying to figure this shit out too, but it's got to get done.
But I am. So you better fucking figure it out too, motherfucker. Tough love. I'm a coach.
It's hard, man. It's hard. Like, listen, I'm a 40-year-old dude with no kids, and I speak to menopausal women every single day. I have no idea.
Remember, he speaks down to them. Just keep reminding.
Yeah, I remind them. I remind them how they're hopeless and how they're never going to be able to succeed. Yeah, you've shriveled up and died already. You might as well just end it. But like, the only reason why I succeed with my population is because I understand what it's like to be overwhelmed. I understand what it's like to manage your time poorly. But the reality is like I've worked with people that are single moms who have 2 jobs and they're supporting 3 children on their own, and they make everything work somehow magically. And then I've worked with the stay-at-home mom who's got nothing but time on her hands and can't get anything done. And what's the difference between the 2 people? It just comes down to one person has priorities and time management skills, and the other person doesn't. And this is where black and white tactical information and tactical help helps. Like, yes, we have to be empathetic, and yes, we have to listen. But at some point, like, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to give you fucking advice that I know is right? Because I've watched other people succeed in a worse position than yours.
100%. And here's the thing too. I truly believe that. So something we use in our coaching, and one of my head coaches, she's the person that implements all the psychology behind a lot of our systems and stuff. So she's better at explaining this, but she has like a literal equation. She calls it the worth it equation. And ultimately it just boils down to that. Is it really worth it for the person? If the person's not doing it, it's not worth it to them. And even though they sign up for coaching, they want to lose weight, it's not worth what it's required, right? Whatever they have to do to get there isn't worth it to them yet. And you have to explain to them why it is. Because I had a guy the other day, I was like, hey, I think we need to bump up your steps. So I added like 2,000 steps. And I was like, let me know if that's realistic. We can always adjust with calories. I know he's a lawyer. He's super busy. I'm like, I get it. And he responded. He was like, honestly, that's going to be really tough. I'm already walking, blah, blah, blah. And then I didn't even get a chance to reply. He sent me another message and he goes, actually, fuck that. I trained for a marathon. There's time. 2,000 steps is easy. I'll do it.
I think even that is a great, yes, that's a great example, because I think there's a lot of hand holding in coaching where it's these immediate responses, always there for the person in everything. And just that, like, you didn't even do it on purpose. But I think sometimes as a coach, maybe you see that text and maybe you don't respond right away.
100%. So to that point, I have done that even with somebody who needed to really figure out how to eat while they're traveling. And it's been like, I've guided you. I've held your hand. I see the message. I don't respond. I text them the next day. I'm like, oh, hey,
how'd it go?
How did you go? Like, what did you end up doing? And then they respond. I'm like, you're learning. This is great. That is exactly what I would have told you, literally. You know, so I do think there's a part of it that, I mean, part of the reason you have a coach is so that you can eventually not have a coach. If we put ourselves in the client shoes, like, look, I want to retain people forever, so we never have to get new clients. We can just make money forever and help people forever. I get it. That's how businesses would be super successful, but it's not reality. But
there's a difference between not needing, we want them to not need a coach.
100%.
They could still choose to want a coach. Like, I don't need one. I just want one.
That's accountability.
You know, and that's like the ideal client. You know, you keep them around for a while. You prep them so they don't need you, but you're providing a service that they're like, I want them.
Or multiple services that, you know, you can have tiers. So something that I've talked to my team about that allows us to kind of have this, is I call it the Apple ecosystem, right? So like I bought an iPhone and then I was like, well, I might as well get a MacBook now. Then eventually I was like, well, I need the computer at my house. So I got an iMac. And then I was like, well, I need to count steps. So I'll get an Apple Watch.
And you obviously need the AirPlay to the Apple TV. Otherwise.
And I have the AirPod and I'm like, they own me, because if I was like, screw Apple, I'm going Samsung, I would be screwed. My life would be tough. I'd be okay, right? So how do you create an ecosystem? Well, if you're just only talking about fat loss, like as soon as the macros work, you're done, right? What else can you offer? What else can you push them with? What else can you teach them? How else can you help them grow? Do you have another product or tier or something that you can deliver? And that's how you create an ecosystem where they're always in your environment, because you have created something that is honestly just always beneficial to their growth.
So if you're a client of Cody's, understand he is trying to get you into his cult. He just confessed that he came out with that information.
I've used that verbiage with my team.
So how do you feel about green text bubbles? Be honest.
Honestly, this is actually hilarious. So not our two coaches ago, one of the more recent coaches that
that's why he's not on the team anymore. Go ahead.
No, this is actually funny. It's the only reason she's on team. I'm joking. Actually. There's more reasons to it. But so she had an Android, and her internship was done, and we had our call to where I was going to let her know, like, you know, we're going to bring you on, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, like, everything checks out except one thing.
Yes.
You can only be on team if you have an iPhone, because you're going to fuck up the group thread.
Yeah, you can't put a name to the group chat.
So I literally was like, I'll pay for 75% of it right now. I'll give you cash right now. if you get rid of that Android,
You couldn't do 100. You couldn't pull 100%.
No, she's got to be committed to. You got to.
I like it.
You know.
Yeah, that does
hilarious.
mess up the group chat big time.
Yeah, oh, it's the worst.
And then when everybody like, if you like a text, it says
so and so reacted to. Yeah,
hate that.
brutal.
And the videos come through like garbage when they're sending to form check videos.
I mean,
just
Apple doing that.
That was huge.
Created a whole new ecosystem.
You can't.
They're just fucking geniuses.
Dude,
I mean,
you text somebody and a green bubble comes up. I'm like, did they give me a fucking house line?
Yeah.
I don't even trust they have a phone because I don't trust that they have an Android. I'm like, nobody has that. Come on.
At some point, I'm just expecting the Nigerian king to ask me for my social security number coming up next.
Yeah.
I just imagine whoever's on the back of that phone has a tinfoil hat on because they're like, Apple owns you, man. Like,
Also,
I think everybody I know who has an Android, there's only a handful of people in real life. It is solely for the reason it's a fuck you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to do it too. I do.
Yeah. It's just you said though, they have you by the balls at this point. Everything's already in the cloud.
But
the
just
cloud
accept it. Just accept it. Happiness is a choice.
Yeah, I just know the second I leave, every dick pic I've ever sent in my life is getting published. So
that's
somewhere.
A lot of data. Do you think their server's that big?
Well,
actually, no. They don't need a big server for your dick pics. I apologize for that.
No, the volume of dick pics that have been sent is just atrociously large, and
it makes up for the inches.
Yeah, the more you send and the closer you hold the phone, the better it looks. So I do want to start picking your brain a little bit more on the X's and O's stuff. So maintenance calories. Well, come on. I mean, the guy's fucking smart. Let's use him a little bit. So maintenance calories. People have this idea that oh, well, if I eat 1,800 calories and that's my maintenance based on my TDE, blah, 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 blah. And if I go over that, I'm going to start to put on weight. Or if I go under that, I'm in a deficit. Do you believe, and have you seen anecdotally or scientifically, that there's an actual range of maintenance calories? And if so, what would you say or ballpark that range would be?
It's really, really hard. The way I always, I do refer to it as a range because I do believe it's a range, but I think the degree of how large that range is or that window is obviously individually dependent. And especially, if we're talking about a 110-pound female versus a 250-pound male, totally different ball games. I think the problem with most people when we talk about this is just that they literally think it's a dead set target, and it is a moving range. But if you swing higher on that range, you're probably going to move more. You might sleep better. You might train harder. You might do something that's going to burn more calories, especially if it's like, let's say you eat a bunch of extra carbs, you're probably going to do something with it, because carbs are energy, they're going to help you. If it's protein, you're probably going to sweat a bunch and shit it out. If you already used it all, it's not going to do much else. But I think it depends on a lot of different things. And the reason this is important in general for regular people to understand is that the reason most people fail to lose weight when they first start a calorie deficit is because they take that slow, sustainable baby approach at the beginning, which I think is a mistake. If you drop your calories 5% initially, you're still in that maintenance range probably, and if you do break out of it, you barely break out of it. And the way I tell people this is like, look, if I'm going to cut your calories mentally, you're in a diet now, which means the diet fatigue clock starts ticking. You're going to start stressing from the diet, but nothing happens. So if 2 weeks go by, you haven't lost a pound because we didn't adjust enough, but you spent 2 weeks dieting, quote unquote. Why are we accumulating diet fatigue for no reason, right? So the other thing is that, and actually we do this on the back end. We have a chief science officer, and I had him pull like all the research on fat loss studies, metabolic adaptation, all this stuff to really like paint the picture for all my coaches. So they felt more confident being aggressive with clients in the front end, because there's really no research on fat loss that I'm aware of that takes that slow and steady approach at the beginning. Even when they say it's slow and steady, it's not the same as what coaches today define as slow and steady. The lowest deficit I ever see is 20%. Usually it's 25 to 35%. There's even some studies with 50 to 65% of a calorie
when you
deficit.
say lowest, you mean the smallest?
Smallest.
Yes.
The smallest.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. So if we're dropping 20% of calories, most people, they think that's pretty aggressive, and depending where you're at, I guess it could be
400 calories on a 2,000 calorie diet.
Right. That's not much.
It's nothing. Yeah.
But it's not anything crazy.
Yeah.
But 5% is
nothing.
It's
nothing.
It's a fart.
No response. No response.
Yeah, it's a fart. Exactly. And so I think that's the reason this conversation is even important, is because it gives people permission to be more aggressive. They always think they got to go slow and steady, but there was a really interesting study, and it was actually on postmenopausal women, which I've used this study in a seminar, and somebody was like, yeah, but how is that applicable if they're all postmenopausal? I'm like, well, it's even harder for them to diet. So
They're way harder.
It's definitely going to work for you.
And it's applicable for a lot of your clients who are postmenopausal women. That's how it's applicable.
Yeah. So they put 2 groups. One group was in a 25% deficit. One group was in a 65% deficit. The 25% deficit was there for like, I want to say it was like 6+ months. It was a long time.
Holy shit.
And then the 65% deficit was very short. So it was like 2 to 3 months. And then they tapered it up. So they actually went pretty aggressive. And then they went to a very small, kind of like reverse them. But they followed up with these people at the end of the year. And the 65% deficit lost more initially, obviously, and more in the long term. And what they hypothesized really is just, obviously it worked, but if you put somebody in a deficit and it works and they start losing weight, they're motivated. Their internal drive is on. They're going to ask more questions. They're going to be more specific and accurate. And they're in that honeymoon phase as it is. They just hired a coach. It's like, let's just get to work, get busy, and do the right thing. And one of the things that really drove me crazy was when this reverse dieting fad came into the Gen Pop space, and everybody was like, oh, my clients, they're 60 pounds overweight, but they're not eating enough, so they need a reverse diet.
I'm like, that was my next point to you.
Oh God. I'm like, no, that's what? They definitely ate too much. That's why they're 60 pounds overweight.
2 things. I mean, one, what scares me about that kind of a study is the amount of coaches that'll be like, all right, I'm gonna do the 65% deficit. You're taking somebody of 2,000 calories and putting them at 850, and not having. I'm assuming that's when you have to have a lot of conversations. With that individual and talk about how short-lived, talk about the consequences of your staying there. Those conversations need to happen. So I don't think any new coaches listen to us, but if they are, don't just haphazardly do that kind of shit.
Well, I'll preface this because, I've used this example, and I do have a lot of new coaches that will follow me. And I say, don't just throw everybody in there, because if you actually look at the study, yes, they were postmenopausal. They also weren't strength training 5 days a week. I think they were doing maybe a couple days, if at all. There's a lot of caveats to it. And that's the other thing about research, right? So the Matador study came out and diet breaks started getting big. And then there was another and another diet break study. And people are like, oh, you got to do this. Well, look at the studies and really consider, most people didn't realize that the people in the Matador study dieted for 32 weeks. So if I just ask my client, hey, we can take diet breaks, but it's going to take twice as long. You want 16 weeks, 32 weeks, they're going to be like, 16 weeks. I don't want to do that, And it's also didn't really do anything. It just mitigates some of the adaptation in those time periods, right? So you might manage fatigue a bit better, and psychologically it might be easier, but there's no people ask me this all the time, how long should a multi-day refeed or a diet break be? And I'm like, well, you look at studies, there's a 2-day refeed and a 3-day and then a week and then a 2-week. It doesn't matter. All that matters is are you taking a break every once in a while? Yeah. If your biofeedback sucks and you're tired and your cravings are going up, I'm just going to give you a break before you start binging or before something your performance tanks too much, just to avoid those things, right? Or I like having 1 day a week where I just drink basically a whole bottle of wine to myself, and my wife will have a glass because that's just how I drink.
Tuesdays are tough.
That's got to fit into the diet, right? So I'm joking, but really I have 1 day a week where I'm hey, I don't need a diet break for 2 weeks long every once in a while. Just give me a day every week where I can not track in the app. And if I go over, I go over. If I don't, I don't. I don't want to open the app 1 day a week.
I'm assuming red wine. What's your go-to red wine so that any fanboys and girls can go buy a bottle?
I've bounced around, man. Lately it's been Syrah and Zinfandel, actually.
Wow.
Which are 2 that aren't as popular, but really
What's the brand, the new one with Snoop Dogg and all the gangsters? 21 Crimes?
Yeah.
21 Crimes? It's good. I'll take a red blend of Snoop Dogg. It's good.
Yeah.
We're little THC kicker.
Yeah, we're wine snobs. But really, honestly, I just, that was my way of picking up my wife when I was dating her. I never drank wine at all. And I was like, I got to learn about this stuff and take her to a winery and stuff.
So did you ever, on a date while you were in the courting process, not having any idea what you were doing, have the glass on the table, spin it, sniff it, look at the stems, and just pretend, oh, you fuck.
Oh, absolutely. Because she knew. I mean, our first date, I had reservations to this nice ass restaurant. I was picking her up. She literally said to me, I'm not going there. I don't know you. We're going, I'm not going a mile away from my house. we can go to the Mexican restaurant down the street. And I'm like, okay. We met on
Like,
Instagram. And I'm like,
that's what you do. You're like, she's the one. We're going to a taco stand. Perfect.
Or she's gonna, or her brothers are gonna shake me down.
Yeah, no shit. I ordered a Moscow Mule, and the waitress looks at me. She goes, "This is a Mexican restaurant." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know."
Same thing.
I meant Mexican Mule. Did I say Moscow? I meant Mexican Mule.
You just put tequila in it.
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
god.
Cody, as far as diet breaks are concerned, and I just want to talk about compliance to a diet because so reverse dieting was definitely something that was beaten into my head. I had to kind of throw that up and get out of it. And then,
but there's a way to do it in terms of getting the compliance.
Yes.
The person says they're at 1,500 calories. You confront them on the accuracy and the dining out. They're convinced. So you just sometimes, using the psychology of coaching and people, you go, all right, then if that's the case, we're going to go through what's called a reverse diet just to get their compliance up. So I think, anyway, just to throw that out as a caveat to, we can hate on it all day. There are some people that it actually applies to. Well, no, there are more people who we're going to do it with. The sad part is we do need to tell them afterwards we didn't really put them through a reverse diet because they're going to tell other friends, you got to go through a reverse diet.
Yeah. Well, you have to bring your calories up to 2,500 first.
We typically take clients through what we've always just called it a primer phase, but it's kind of like a block of time where we focus on health, metabolism, eating enough calories, so on and so forth.
Establish habits, of tracking. And,
exactly. Yeah. All the things they got to acquire from a habit perspective are going to be easier when they're not in a huge deficit. So let's get those out of the way now. And a lot of times people come to us, they're like, I'm only eating 1,400 calories. And then it's a period of time where we increase their calories immediately and just teach them how to track properly and or partition their calories a little bit differently. Maybe they are eating 1,400 calories and they're having 40 grams of protein weighing 200 pounds of, you know what I mean? Like that's not an equivalent. No. You can bump the calories up a lot just by protein, and then lo and behold, they recomp, right? So we will be upfront. We do that in that initial stage. I mean, it's like, hey, this is a learning process. We're gonna show you how to do this properly, just to get a good baseline before we actually take you into a deficit.
So at this point in your career, like if you could put a number on it, how many people have you coached personally? If you could put it.
Him personally, not via his coaches. Him personally,
right? Just like you personally, how many people have you specifically coached?
I would probably say about 1,000. Man, this is honestly all I've ever done. The only other job I've ever had, I was basically the maintenance guy, the overnight maintenance guy at a community center, and
that's what you dressed up as when you.
That's what.
So you were like Matt. You were like Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting.
That's the character you played at the strip club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You were the janitor in the YMCA strip dance. Yeah. I got you.
He was the one that doing the TDE calculations on the community center wall.
There you go.
At night with the broom.
At least I can be smart.
The reason why I ask you that is out of the 1,000 people that you've actually coached, this concept of chronic dieting is starting to kill me. Like it's starting to bother me to the deepest depths of my core. I don't believe it. I don't believe that people can actually diet for 16, 20, 40 weeks straight when they say they have. I think maybe they diet for a couple of days a week and then it's fucking chaos. Yeah. In your experience with as many people as you've seen, how many people are actually living in these chronic low calorie states versus what's reality, which is they're low calorie for a couple of days and then it's fucking spring break for 4 days straight?
I actually have a really, really good perspective on this because I have worked with numerous people. Not as many, not tons, but I have worked with quite a few people, over 10 people that I would say are chronic dieting. However, they're stick thin. And I want to make that very clear. So I don't know. Number one, they chronically dieted themselves until they were underweight. And then they stayed there because they feared the scale going up. They feared eating too much. It's not the same chronic dieting that a lot of people think of that you were probably alluding to, which is basically I can't lose weight because I've been chronically dieting. No, if you have weight to lose, chronic dieting is not the issue at all. I've never ran into that, honestly. And there's even been times where we've had people do blood work and we're like, okay, what's going on here? And this is why we have a chief science officer. We bring him in, he looks at the blood work. I've had him actually, there's one time where we had him talk to a client. We were trying to figure stuff out. And ultimately it boiled down to, there are certain metabolic issues or hormonal issues that cause metabolic issues that do slow down the metabolism, but it's 10, 15%. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But the individual was not training the way she said she was, and she was not. She claimed she was active. She wasn't active. Her steps were super. Like, it was just like, oh,
Now, how did you go about finding that out?
Yeah.
Like, you literally have to ask the questions over and over and over and over.
And then
You just
eventually I'm not really going I only went a couple. Yeah, I'm
I mean,
honestly
even to the
probably
point where,
averaging.
oh, you wear an Oura ring. Okay, let's do this.
Screenshot.
Track your. We'll track it in your your phone, and put your phone in your pocket. Wear that all day. Or here, I'll buy you a $20 pedometer. Put that in your pocket, because as you type at work, you're getting a lot of fucking steps, right? And your fingers are going up and down, up and down, up and down. And that's a fact. I've actually tested this on myself as well. Oh, absolutely.
With the Oura ring?
Yes.
I told you I used
It
to have
can't tell that you're not swinging your arm.
I told you I have to take it off, and I used to jerk off with it all the time. I'd have to take it off constantly. I could not keep it on while I jerked off.
He wears it on his penis sometimes. It's weird.
It's I had to get a smaller one. It was too big. The first one.
Yeah,
was too
Oura
big.
ring now does have a cock ring Oura ring. It's a really nice device.
The way times are
Luckily, it's a Finnish company, so it's a little bit on the smaller side, which fits me nicely.
Finnish. It's Finnish.
So,
But
anyway, back to science. Go ahead.
It's it's not very likely, and like I said, they're stick thin, and it's usually not. They usually have like REDS, right? Relative energy deficit syndrome in sport. They've just literally been a physique athlete or an ex-fitness model or a track athlete or something, that they've done so much exercise, so much dieting, that they get to that point. But they actually literally need to gain weight, so they have chronically dieted. Otherwise, I think there's times where you can have some. I would actually argue that it's probably stress induced. So, like, stress is very perceptual. There's some studies that show how you perceive stress determines the negative impacts it has on you. So if I'm just easygoing and I don't really stress about things, it's not going to impact my immune system or my hormones nearly as much as the person who is a worrywart and gets anxious, and the stress, same stress applied, causes chaos. Well, my assumption would be, maybe if you're chronically dieting, you're stressing the process, you're training too hard, you're not recovering, maybe that stress causes a downstream effect of gut health issues and then hormonal issues. Maybe. I still don't call it chronic dieting, because it's so indirect. I've even gone to lengths of, I talked to my our chief science officer about this on a podcast we did with Metabolic Adaptation. I was like, based on research, how long does it actually take for metabolic adaptation to occur, and how long does it take to reverse? So people.
I'm very curious to hear this, because I've heard something around 5 to 7 months.
I have a set number in my head. Yes, yeah. In my head, I have like 12 to 16 weeks if they're truly compliant straight through.
So you guys are probably thinking of a degree that is much greater, obviously, because it's 3 weeks. So they start seeing metabolic adaptations at 3 weeks.
Well, start seeing metabolic adaptations, or how long would it take to adapt to the 500 calorie deficit?
That I can't be sure, because it's going to be individually dependent, even just.
But it's the process begins to happen
at 3
Okay,
weeks.
So that makes sense. So if somebody's maintaining a 500 calorie deficit, they begin to start adapting at 3 weeks, and then it may be 12 weeks, and maybe 16 weeks, 100%. Whatever.
And then on top of that, how long can somebody, like, so if we even think about that and we're like, well, then how long until the metabolic adaptation stops them from losing weight or anything like that?
Yeah.
I don't know if it ever does. I mean, truthfully, like, you can still lose weight. You just have to keep going. Like, you have to do it longer, do it better, or drop your calories. I mean,
well, but if you didn't drop calories based on the principle of metabolic adaptation, it would eventually hit that number. But then you just have to then continue to drop if you wanted to continue to see the result.
And that point is a lot further along than people realize,
And nobody's.
You can keep adding things or doing more. I mean, like, I've gone on stage. When I got on stage last time, I was doing 7 days a week of cardio, 50 minutes every single session. And I was dieting on very low calories, because that's what I had to do at the end. So,
how'd you feel? How'd you feel?
Shit.
Yeah. Well, where were you at? Where were you at calorically at the depth of your deficit heading into that show?
Yeah, I believe the ending calories, like the lowest point, were 16 something. So like,
and where was body weight?
How many grams of fat?
Where was body weight?
Body weight was, I got on stage at 160, 159.
So about 10 calories per pound.
That was good.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is I was eating 250 grams of protein. So like,
yeah, that's fucking.
What were you at? Like 30?
1 point.
Oh,
so like 30 grams of fat or less?
Yeah,
30, that's nuts. There's 0% chance I could ever eat 30 grams of fat a day if you asked me to.
Oh, dude, it's hard. It's
like, I don't even know how I do it.
There was the day where, like, I was feeling ambitious and I was going to mow the lawn, and it was like, I think I was like 3 weeks out. I live on a half acre and I got a push mower. I'm like, I'm doing it.
I had that for 5 years with a lot of grass, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Fuck this!" At a certain, get
I
the
got-
rider, bro. Get
I
the
got
rider.
halfway done and I like went through the back door into our bedroom and my wife ends up coming in and I'm just laying on the floor and she's like, what is going on?
For mowing the lawn.
I'm like, I need something. My blood sugar's low. Give me a Jolly Rancher.
This is 3 weeks prior to the competition.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So why do you want to do it again?
Actually,
I'm being serious. Like,
Yeah.
like, is what I feel like there's got to be like a little bit of a dichotomy of the reasons. Like, yeah, I'm doing it for the sport, but is there kind of a fucked up reason?
Yeah. So
tell us about the darkness.
I've had to explain this to my wife because she does not get it. She's not in this world. But so there's an aspect of, I believe, like, and this is not something I don't push this hard onto people because this is like David Goggins style stuff. I truly believe that there's a part of success that comes down to what you're willing to do, and some of that is suffering. So there is lessons inside the suffering, and I do enjoy the result of it. I don't enjoy the process necessarily, but there's something, man, it's weird. There's something deep, there's something spiritual, there's something mental about going that far that just changes you as a person. And there's also, I'm literally obsessed with the story behind tailored coaching method, tailored life, tailored everything. And it's about the average individual who defies the odds with the chip on his shoulder and conquers whatever, right? And so my whole goal is to show normal people, because I was the unlikely candidate who didn't get good grades, who didn't grow up in a good area, who covered their body in tattoos, who got said no to a bunch of times, who had to forge my dad's signature to change my degree and go into fitness. Like, I did all the things despite people saying no. And I still keep progressing and I want to teach people that. So I literally got this last time I signed up for the show because, like, and this is going to sound so crazy, but I had a couple trips coming up. At the time we thought we were moving. So we're getting ready to like move our lives. I have a business. I have a daughter. I have a wife. My wife actually had surgery coming up and I had to move my show because the surgery got changed and stuff. So we had all this going on and I was like, I'm going to do a show because this is going to allow every person who tells me an excuse to realize that
this is the craziest time of my life and I'm going to do it anyway.
And I'm going to do it anyway. And now I'm going to do it again and I'm going to beat the last version. And I'm doing that just to add to the story. I'll probably never do a show again after the next one, but I'm going to do the same show and I'm bulking right now. I'm like eating like a
we can tell.
Trying to gain. And then a lot of big teas. I'm at like 182 pounds this morning. So this is the heaviest I've been in a while. Most calories, I'm eating almost 4,000 calories.
And you're doing men's physique.
Yeah. And so my plan is to basically do the same exact show and beat I placed last time. So I might do a couple shows, but like, I just want to outdo it. And I just want to show everybody, like, you can just outdo yourself. You can keep growing. And it just fits into this story of the average person achieving above average things. Like that's the whole point.
Did you have any physical or mental consequences
from the show?
From going through the process, from the show, from rebounding afterwards, how you viewed your body, hormone profile or anything like that?
Well, and this is the other thing that we looked into when we looked at the metabolic adaptation, testosterone, for example. You drop calories, your testosterone drops within a week. Like it's very responsive. It's not like, but again, you can still lose weight with low testosterone. Yeah. So it's not like it's stopping you, but you start seeing that drop right away. And when you refeed, you instantly see a bump up. So your body's so dynamic. And this is what the whole chronic dieting thing, it's like, hey guys, you're fine. But actually I didn't have any, no like body image, no mental issues, nothing like that.
Nice.
However, the first time I did a show, I absolutely did. It was terrible. And this is a dumb idea. Don't ever do this. Got on stage. And then 2 days later, I got on a cruise with my ex and we like went on a cruise, all you can eat, all you can drink.
And he wasn't even with her at the time. They had already broken up and he went with her.
This is actually when I got back, I gained a ton of weight and it like full blown depressed at the time. Cause it was the first time I ever worked real hard, but I was pretty young. This is right when like Lane came out with Metabolic Damage and he was filming it by his like pool in his backyard. Like Muscle and Strength Pyramids weren't even out yet. Like this is a long time ago. So I started watching all these YouTube videos that got me into what I'm into today, like nutrition coaching. But this time it was a lot easier for me because I went through it that time. And I also had the accountability. I was like, I want to show people that follow me and show our clients, like it's going to take more discipline on the back end if I'm going to like basically continue eating clean, because the best way for me to reverse diet is actually to do that. So I can make sure I do the reverse diet properly. Once my calories are high enough to be flexible, then I'll be flexible as I want. but I'm going to do this the right way. And I'm so glad I did it because it was way healthier way to do it. It's just hard. It's mentally tough to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I had posed a question on my Instagram a while ago, and I basically said if you had to diet for 12 months straight with 6 free meals over the course of that 12 months, but at the end of that 12 months, you get the ideal body you've always wanted. A, would you do it? And B, could you do it? And I think a lot of people said they would do it, but I questioned whether they could. One guy actually ended up DMing me and said, dude, I don't know if you want, but I have a story for you. I'm like, what is it? He's like, I dieted for 24 months straight with no refeeds, with no diet breaks, and with no free meals. That's a 1%er. That's Steve Jobs. That's somebody that will never exist.
He only lost 6 pounds. It was a brutal 24 months.
There's 0%. If you were to say,
no way,
that would cure my mother's cancer and that would give me $50 million, I still couldn't do it.
Yeah. She's going to die anyway.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's kind of like that whole like choose your hard thing, you know?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I mean, I guess it just depends. Like, you know, for me, I usually I wouldn't do this, but I cut out alcohol on this prep. And usually I would drink once a week, and I have addictive personality, so I just don't drink more than once a week.
Oh, you definitely have to come to the Real Coaches Summit next year, though. We got something for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The process of doing that was literally intentionally so I could show myself I didn't need it, you know, because it was like, and I think that's what this all comes down to, right? Like,
did you feel good? Did you feel a difference? Like, this is actually nice.
I felt way better. I was like, this isn't going to affect me anything but Sunday. Of course, when I wake up, I felt so much better on Monday at work.
Right.
But it was, I literally sat back. I was talking to somebody and I was like, man, yeah, I've drank every week basically since like 7th grade. That's just at least once a week.
But just once a week.
Even in 8th grade, he was responsible. In 8th grade, he's like, I'm only doing this on the weekends, just one day.
That's actually pretty fucking crazy. Are you a cannabis person or not?
I was not anymore.
Now you blast off with mushrooms on Friday nights?
Not anymore either, man. I've done my fair share of.
Okay. Jeez, never mind. All right, thanks for listening in.
It's one of those things, man. I was just like, well, if I'm doing it every week, I feel like I have to, or like for a day, we got to have a drink. I'm like, damn, I can't have phone with my wife unless I'm drinking. Like this is stupid. So I cut it out. It did help prep, and then as soon as prep was over, I mean, I think I had a glass of wine the night I got back. I was like,
Syrah.
But other than that, man, like I don't like people think I'm crazy. I don't have cravings. Like I don't have a sweet tooth. That's just not my thing. Like if I drink, I probably drink too much when I do. But like you saying, could you do that? I could absolutely do that. Honestly,
really,
alcohol would be the one thing that would be tough because I really enjoy nice whiskey and nice wine, and that's time with my wife.
But if you could incorporate that into your calories, then you're maintaining. You know, it's like, hey, I can have 2 fingers on a Saturday night, and I got my 200 calories, and it's in my macros.
So what do you say to the folks? And maybe we can end on this because I know it's been a while. But what do you say to the folks who say things like, "Well, I need to have alcohol, or I need to have treats, or I need to have that, or I need to have this"? What kind of conversation are you having with those people? Because this is stuff that we're encountering all the time, and I think that's just a belief system that we have to start to shed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I often tell them, I'll say, "Yep, you're right. You do need it because you're telling yourself you need it." So you're basically shooting yourself into the foot. You're writing a story in your head that is honestly screwing your progress. And there's so much great placebo research to prove this. Like literally, if you just consistently tell yourself, and it works in the reverse. I actually asked Dr. Caroline Leaf is a phenomenal guest for a podcast. She's a psychologist and a neuroscientist. And it was the time I interviewed her during COVID, and I was like, hey, I'm curious about like the whole like speaking in the universe idea, like how much reality is in that? Because I've been telling myself I'm not going to get sick, and I've been around a bunch of people with COVID, and I still haven't got it. Like I'm just keep telling myself in the mirror, like COVID can't touch you. And she said, when you speak something into existence, you're not literally speaking it obviously into existence, but you say it enough externally or in your head, your actions, your attitudes, your habits, everything will subconsciously shift to make that a reality. And you don't even realize it. And there's science to prove it. And ever since I heard her say that, I kind of just start to teach my clients how to reframe their thinking, right? Yeah. Let's reframe the way you're going about this. Let's reframe the way you feel about that thing. And the more you say, even if like, this sounds crazy, but even if you just start saying, I don't need that, I want that. Cool. Do it. Keep eating it. But just beforehand, just know that you want it, you don't need it.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll be able to have self-control and stop that. But this goes back to like the whole self-formation thing, right? At some point, we're going to have to teach them self-control. They're going to need to use self-discipline. They're going to need to self-motivate themselves because they're not always going to have that external. They got to eliminate self-doubt by doing these things, which builds self-belief. They have self-transformation. Now they have self-respect and appreciation, right? Like it always, like somebody's going to lean on one, like somebody might have a ton of doubt and the other person just has no control. Like everybody has their thing they really got to work on. But this is what fat loss coaching is about, right? It's about knowing those things and how to get your clients to shift those things, usually mentally, in order to get the result, and then helping them connect the dots as to why this is going to help the rest of their life so much.
And even for those people who say that they need alcohol, to even just offer them the challenge. You say you need that. Do you want to not need it? Yeah, I want to not need it. Are you ready for a 4 to 8 week challenge of no alcohol? Just to prove, and then you can go right back to it if you want. And then they can never say they need it again. Yeah. They got through 4 weeks, kind of like a prep for getting on stage. This is a little prep of no alcohol. We're not even going to worry about macros, calories, anything like that, just to show you that you can do it, that you don't need it.
In my experience, man, you don't need to go to get your master's in psychology and all this shit to know this. I have a guy right now, he's on day 78 of no alcohol. And it's ironic too, because he was asking me to change his macros and stuff before this, and now I haven't touched his macros since. He just keeps losing weight every week. But he feels amazing. And there was so much work we had to do before he actually finally committed and did the work and got consistent. But it's not rocket science. It is this simple stuff. It's journaling. It's writing down what's on your mind. It's writing down your environment when you go to that bad habit. It's all these little things. And as a coach, our job is to instill that self-belief. And I'll just end with this too. If you don't have self-belief because you're not doing shit, you're not challenging yourself, you're not working hard, like you don't deserve to be a coach and be in that role. Like you need to go through some of this stuff. You need to go hire a coach and invest in the same thing you're asking your clients to invest in. Yeah. And it's something I'm really passionate about just because I see so many people. I even had somebody reshare like a quote post I did that said, trainers, there's no excuse not to be in shape. That's all it said. And like, it went crazy. And then somebody shared it and did a video and made a bunch of reasons why you don't need to, like, that's not true all the time. And sometimes this, and it's just like, I don't know, but all my clients reach out to me and they're like, you're 100% right. I hired you because you walk the walk, because even to your point, you were talking about all the other people in the industry, right? What's the difference between me and you two? Not like from a knowledge perspective, we're all smart. We all know what we're doing. Somebody's going to relate to me more in my story. Somebody's going to relate to one of you guys.
Yeah. Like I never viewed that. We know somebody who would like to have two coaches stand up and say, why should I hire you instead of that person? And every time in my head, I'm thinking, because you reached out to me.
Yeah. Because you reached out to me.
Don't hire me. If you don't know if you want to hire me, please do not hire me because you're going to question everything. You're going to challenge me. You're going to be thinking you should have hired the other person. This idea that we're all in competition to me is total BS.
And that's why I told you to change your logo because people needed to see your face and know who you were so that they
I'm fucking good looking. I get it. And Cody told me I'm good looking, everybody, without saying it. Yeah. He was afraid. So no. And it was, and you're right. It's that brand of recognizing who you are. And all that stuff. I think in my head too, I'm like, I don't know what picture. I'm not getting some professional picture taken. I'm not a tool. Fuck this. I'll just put this up. At least they'll recognize that. But yeah, you're right. And the one thing I wanted to say, because I just posted about what you were talking about with thinking like I'm not going to get sick, and it's a psychosomatic issue. And I posted about this recently. We all believe in psychosomatic disorders for the negative. We know that the mental can create disease. It can create fibromyalgia. There's trauma from the past. The body locks up. It creates these issues. The physical therapist that I go to whenever I have something tweaked, they are hard on this. You need to believe that you're going to heal. And these are things that they're talking about. They're not just putting you through physical stuff. They recognize so much the psychosomatic issue. If you believe that psychosomatic issues for the negative exist, then by default, you must believe that they exist for the positive. You cannot believe one without the other. Yeah. So to go with what you were saying, I 100% believe and are, on that stance of the way that we're thinking. Patch Adams, man, fucking Patch Adams. Robin Williams played, it's like laughing, smiling, enjoying life. All those kind of things make a big difference with immune system, with success. You need to be able to believe and envision these things happening, or it's never going to happen.
I've done a whole podcast on placebo effect. I dug up all this research, man. There's so many good studies to prove that. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. unending.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for allowing me to share that story at the beginning. I know that's not always the easiest thing in the world to have to hear, but I just wanted to always be upfront about that. And
listen, man, you won him over. That's even better than him liking you at the beginning. Anybody can be liked from the beginning, but to change someone's mind, you're like a superhuman.
That was super cool. Like, honestly, I loved it, especially because there was, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there's part of me that was like, how come we're not like connected? Like, I know because
you didn't follow him, asshole.
We were at a place together and stuff, you know what I mean? So like to hear the side of it and then to know like getting to know actually who I am, change that a bit. Like that's I love that.
So no, and thank you for restoring my faith in this industry, because I tend to lose it quite frequently, and I'm trying to create an army of people that are just going to stomp out the bullshit, and I think we're doing it in a very big way.
Yeah, we're on the same mission, man.
And no pressure to follow me back, Cody.
We just need that one more follower. He's just looking for it.
I'm sorry, I was just looking at text message. Yeah, I thought this was a great conversation. I was just on Beth Farraco's podcast, and I recommended this book. And based on our conversation, I would definitely check it out. Jeb Stewart Johnston, who me and Aram know, sent me this book called No Bad Parts. It's Dr. Charles Schwartz, I think, Internal Family Systems. You might really like it from the psychology perspective. Like, we're all multi-personality beings. Like, there's the shy part of you. There's the outgoing part of you. We all have these multiple personalities, which is different than multiple personality disorder. And to be able to embrace these different aspects of us, like there was something that happened maybe, when you're younger and this thing gets in the way, like, no, fuck them. You're going to eat all this food to deal with your feelings. You're going to drink all these drinks to deal with your feelings. And that is an aspect of our personality that's protecting us. And we need to be able to thank that instead of trying to shun it and shut it down and be like, just discipline, willpower and all that, to be able to embrace that thing, be like, hey, thank you for trying to protect me right now, but I don't need you to protect me in this way anymore. Like, how can we work together kind of thing? It's a really very, very interesting from the psychological perspective. And as a coach, I've already like implemented some of those aspects in the conversations that I'm having. So yeah, No Bad Parts. Check it out. People who are listening, check the book out. It can be pretty eye-opening.
Self-awareness is the beginning of all that other stuff. So 100%. You can't change something that you don't know, you're not aware of. So even that right there, you got to dig into all the parts to figure out how to grow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And he walks you through little things too. Cause I feel like a lot of people say like, you got to do the work.
What's the work
What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
But like you had said, like journaling things, writing things down, confronting these issues. And it might just be self-conversation, but journaling, that's the work. But I feel like a lot of people throw that phrase around without actually knowing what that means.
They want to get paid to be a motivator and not somebody who actually practically applies stuff.
You got to do the work. Like, what do I do? The work.
The work.
You got to dig deep. Like how? Like you just got to look inside.
Go do it and come back to me.
Yeah. Like, you'll know when it's there.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. That's awesome. Rob, are we ready for his final question? Or
I think
was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, that's it. I've sucked his dick enough today.
Awesome. We'll see you in less than 6 months for part 2. I'm sure we'll get plenty of requests to have you back. I felt like a very natural conversation. Anyway, our last question, which we ask all of our guests, which I know that you do not know what it is because you don't fucking listen to the show. Bye.